Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a musical masterpiece that was basically lost to time. It's an incredible story about jazz, about family, and about rediscovering a treasure nearly 50 years after it was made. This is the story of Cinnamon Flower.
Think about that for a second. It's a simple question, right? But for the son of a true jazz legend, trying to answer it started this profound journey. A journey to unearth not just a lost recording, but the very soul of his own father. I mean, wow. Can you imagine someone saying that to you? This was the raw, confrontational moment that really pushed Charlie Rouse Jr. to figure out the legacy of his dad, the legendary saxophonist Charlie Rouse. What a way to kick off a history lesson.
So our story really gets going not in some dusty record store, but in a club in Hoboken all the way back in 1980. And it's here that a tense, almost casual comment suddenly becomes this life-changing challenge.
You know, for a long time, Charlie Rouse Jr. just knew his dad as his dad. But after being called out like that, he went on this deep, personal quest. He talks about how he studied his father's music every single night, just trying to piece together the man behind the sound he'd grown up with.
And that brings us to the music itself. So, who was Charlie Rouse, the artist? And what on earth made this giant of bebop just completely pivot and create a sound that was a world away from everything he was known for?
The difference here is it's night and day. For more than 10 years, Rouse was the iconic tenor sax man for the one and only Thelonious Monk. His sound was pure, hard-hitting, angular bebop. But then, by the 70s, he felt this pull. A pull towards these fresh, lyrical, vibrant rhythms coming out of Brazil.
As his son remembers it, Rouse was just completely captivated. He came home one day all excited, talking about this young trumpeter he'd just run into, Claudio Roditi. He was telling his son he was dynamite. And right there, that excitement, that was the spark for this entire project.
So that meeting with Claudio Roditi, it wasn't just a meeting. It was like opening a door. Suddenly, Rouse had access to this whole new world of musicians, giving him the perfect ingredients to get in the kitchen and cook up something brand new.
And just look at this lineup. I mean, we're talking a literal gumbo of geniuses. You've got American jazz royalty like the great Ron Carter and the legendary Bernard Pretty Purdy, and they're mixing it up with Brazilian masters like Dom Salvador and Claudio Roditi. This wasn't just a band, it was a full-on cultural song. And the chemistry, it was just electric, right from the jump. The fusion was so natural, so seamless, that even a jazz giant like Ron Carter, a guy known for being deep in the bebop world, he completely transformed his sound. He just melted right into this rich cultural mix. It just goes to show how inspiring this project was for everybody in that room. This is where you see the real depth of Rouse's musical mind. He heard something in the way pianist Dom Salvador played, an integrity that was so deeply rooted in Brazilian culture, it reminded him of how Thelonious Monk's playing was rooted in the American experience. For Rouse, this was a world jazz mosaic coming together right in front of him.
Okay, but here's the big twist in the story. The album that actually came out in 1977, it wasn't exactly what this band of geniuses recorded in the studio. And that right there is why this new release is so incredibly important.
Charlie Rouse Jr. remembers it so clearly. He remembers his dad's pure excitement for the raw, unedited tapes. His dad was just thrilled with the purity of it, you know? The sound of these two cultures just weaving together naturally, with nothing extra added. So, what happened? Well, one word, overdubbing. The original record label, without really getting Rouse's input, went and layered these string arrangements over the tracks. Now, this was a pretty common thing to do in the 70s to make a record sound more commercial, but what it did was bury the raw, fiery chemistry of the actual band. It kind of clouded the original vision.
But thankfully, this new, expanded edition from Resonance Records finally peels away all those overdubs. For the very first time, we get to hear Cinnamon Flower exactly as Rouse and his incredible band wanted us to hear it. Pure, direct, and just so powerful. Which brings up a really interesting question. Why does this album, that's nearly 50 years old, feel so fresh and so relevant right now? Why is this its moment? As his son points out, the 70s were definitely an experimental time, for sure. But this sound, this was truly ahead of the curve. Today, our ears are just so much more tuned in to global sounds, especially Brazilian music. You could say we finally caught up to where Charlie Rouse was way back in 1977. The world is finally ready for Cinnamon Flower.
So if you want to experience this landmark recording for yourself, here's everything you need to know. First, get out your calendar and mark down September 19th, 2025. That's the day Cinnamon Flower gets re-released on all the digital streaming platforms, plus on CD and a beautiful double LP vinyl set. And the physical copies? They're packed with unreleased photos and amazing liner notes from critics and from Charlie Rouse Jr. himself. For more info, you can check out the record label at resonancerecords.com or connect with the family's incredible legacy work at therouselegacygroup.com.
This was the question that Charlie Rouse himself was asking. He believed that if you brought different cultures together with real taste, with respect, with genuine interpretation, you could create something that would last forever. And now, almost 50 years later, we can finally hear it for ourselves. Cinnamon Flower is the timeless, beautiful proof of his vision.